A very good morning to you. This is Off the Shelf. I am David Batsoffen, and I'm joined today by the author of this memoir, Peter Venison, Sol, my friend and adversary, Sol Kersner. Peter, good morning. Welcome to you. I love your space that you seem to be sitting in.
Uh, yes, well, we're lucky we live in a barn. Um, it was a granary and it's been converted obviously into a home.
Right.
So it's in the country, but about 30 miles outside of London in the Surrey Hills. So quite a nice place.
Wonderful.
Not as nice as South Africa, I have to say.
Sol, tell me a bit about the book. I was handed this. I was at a game lodge, and as I was leaving, the owner said, "You're going to like this." And I took it and I thought, why? And then I read it cover to cover for the rest of my time in the bush. And I have to tell you, Peter, it affected me in more ways than I thought it would. It is beautiful, it is thoughtful, it makes you angry, it makes you happy. How you and your wife were hurled around the world. I have no idea how she put up with it, going from pillar to post, back and forth.
Yeah, yes, she's the hero of the story. There's no
Yes.
question. Um, and yes, she had to put up with a lot. Uh, I mean, the fact that she loved South Africa, I think, was a major win
Right.
for me and for Sol. But she did get jerked around. That's
She
absolutely
did
right.
indeed.
Yes,
Like a puppet
Mm.
on a string. Talk
Yes.
us through the early days. Some people remember Sol. I showed this book to one of the young rangers. They had no idea who he was because
Well,
he's from a decade past.
yes. Well, that's really why I wrote this book, because somewhere in it I explained that I was in South Africa a few years ago and went into a bookshop in Hyde Park, and I, looking at the biography section, there was a large biography section there, a lot of South African biographies and a lot of international ones. But I went to the desk and said to the young lady, "Do you have anything on Sol Kersner?" And she said, "Sol who?" And we went through this thing of looking it up on the computer and everything, and I was sort of astounded that she was of a generation that actually never heard of him.
Mm,
Um, and then again, not long after that, in Los Angeles, I went into another famous bookstore in the Grove shopping center there, and there was a South African young lady on the desk who'd
mm.
obviously gone to US to work. And I said, "Have you got anything on Sol Kersner?" And she said, "Sol who?" And and I said, he built Sun City." And she said, "Oh, we've got some books on other builders and other." So I mean,
Architects.
I just thought this was a shame that a man who had contributed so much
Yeah.
to the economy and the PR of the country at a difficult time.
Mm,
I thought it was a shame that no one had written. Of course, I discovered that other people had tried,
mm.
and other people had been stopped one way or another. And I knew that I might be in for a little battle, which in the end I was. However, with the help of a very astute publisher, we managed to get to the press before the battle came to anything. So, but that's why. I mean, the reason was I didn't think he should be forgotten. I'm not a professional writer, so I wasn't sure I was the one to do that. But no one else had, so I had a crack.
But also you were, I suppose, as close to him as anybody else,
Yes.
by outside of his immediate family, who may or may not have wanted to write. But you were sort of the heir apparent when it came to writing about the man.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I lived with him through thick and thin, really. So,
Literally.
well, I also lived in his house for a while, so we actually got to know each other very well. And like all partnerships of that nature, obviously there are ups and downs.
Yeah,
And in the end, the downs at one point became too great to take, as you read in the book.
yeah.
Um, but nevertheless, despite all of the tensions and all of the drama that happened from time to time, I maintain the greatest respect for him.
That comes across in the book that no matter how bad things got between the two of you, you always, I want to use the term kissed and made up, because there were, you came back multiple times when you could have
Mm.
just walked away and accepted other jobs, but it doesn't seem like he took no for an answer when it came to you.
No, I mean, I came back because, excuse me, at one point in the book, I explain that my wife and my children said to me, you know, when you worked with Sol, you were never more alive and never more fun to be with,
Yeah,
and all these sorts of things. Because he did, for all his faults, he did bring out the best in people.
right.
And he did have an amazing breadth to him in
Mm,
terms of his vision, that there weren't too many other people you could work with like that. So in our field, that is, I mean,
yeah.
it's a limited field, obviously, but there wasn't anyone else like him. The
No,
rest,
and do
the
you
rest
think,
of the business. Sorry,
yeah, no, no,
no,
no.
I was going to say the rest of the business had gone corporate somehow. I mean,
Mm,
one of the biggest dangers to the world's hotel groups is that they were in the main started by hoteliers. They were in the main taken over by financiers. And that was the kiss of death because the when the accountants, and Sol was an accountant, but an
mm,
unusual accountant. But when the accountants or the financiers got hold of the international hotel companies, their standards fell,
yeah,
because there wasn't the passion for the business. The banker doesn't have the passion for the business he takes over. And we see that in all walks of life. I mean, I've
mm,
seen it, for example, in America recently with the veterinary business, where the banks took over all the vets. And you know, it's such a long way from being a banker to being a vet.
yeah.
And it was the same in the hotel business. International groups were brought up, and the bottom line was the only thing that mattered. But the bottom line doesn't stay good for too long if you
Ex
don't care.
exactly. Again, in the
Yeah,
book, I learned things that, I mean, having worked at Sun City on some of the Miss World and Miss South Africa pageants, I
yep,
was on the peripheries of sort of Sol and his entourage on more than one occasion. And he is a force. I mean, when he walks through a space, people know he's there. He's
yep,
not one to hide his light under a bushel. But you tend to forget what a change he made to hotels in general. Like when you walk into a hotel now, the reception area is a proper space that is set up beautifully to draw the guests in. The
yes,
rooms are secondary because a room is just a bed basically
yes,
and a bathroom. And how
yes,
you dress those depends on the theme of the hotel. But it is
yeah.
the reception area that he, I almost want to say, was the innovator of.
Excuse me.
Okay,
I'm
and
sorry.
built on that.
Yes. Well, and you've hit the nail on the head in terms of hotel design. Um, Sol, the thing that Sol thought about a room is just as you've said. I mean, it
It's
is
a
a room. There's only
room.
so much you can do with it. However, one thing you can do with it, which he was good at, was make sure it looks in the right direction if possible.
I
Um,
love that.
and
Your description in the book, I think it was was it the palace that he said was off by like a half a meter or something. And then
yes,
he went, no, if you stand here, the view is much better than from if you
yes.
stand there. And he had sort of had these visions constantly.
Yes. Well, it was the same. He saw more than architects often see.
Mm.
So, for example, the arrival to him, and in a sense, you're talking about lobbies and things, but the
Yeah.
arrival was crucial because it's your first impression, and we all know all the sayings about first impressions. I mean, if you take the Saint Laurent, for example, which many of your listeners will know in Mauritius, the arrival is important because it's a cheaply built hotel in sense of the materials and the
Yes.
design. I mean, it's a 3-story hotel in parts. It could be a motel if you're not careful, but the landscaping around it conceals that wasn't built in an expensive
Mm.
manner, not a grand manner. But the entrance is superb
Yeah.
because the entrance is the whole 3 or 4 stories high at that point. It's a huge arch. And you look through this as you arrive, right the way through the hotel to the blue sea on the other side. And the blue sea isn't the same blue everywhere. So
Yeah.
you'll look at an ocean, you'll see patches. This patch will be brilliant color, and this patch will be a bit dark, let's say. He stood there and argued with everybody before we built with the plans, saying, "You've got this all wrong because when you look through this arch, what are you looking at? You're looking at
Mm.
a bush in the distance or something. You've got to get it exactly so when you arrive, you look through this magnificent space. But the other side is this wonderful blue, the bluest blue
Right.
you'll ever see." And they'd drawn it on paper, but they hadn't in their heads, they hadn't put it into a sort of three-dimensional form in their heads. They hadn't envisaged it as he could. And that was the same with every project that he did.
This may sound a bit off topic, but it talks to exactly what you've just said. I was watching an interview with Jack Black yesterday, and he
Mm-hmm.
was Kung Fu Panda. And he was saying it was interesting watching himself as a 3D animated character because we as humans don't get to see ourselves in 3D. We only see
No.
ourselves in 2D. But so, and he
Yes.
said,
So,
very few, if any people, see in 3D. But it sounds like Kersner was one of those people that could
yeah.
envision exactly what was going to be built, whereas an architect just gave him a drawing and said, this will work
Yes.
or not.
Yes. Well, he had the ability, as you quite rightly picked up. He could look at a flat plan and imagine it in 3 dimension, and that's quite unusual for most architects. Don't have clients who can do that. And if Saul couldn't really imagine it, he insisted on building a model.
Mm,
No matter. I mean, initially we didn't have the money to build fancy models, um, and they busy little cardboard jobs sort of thing. But he'd insist on having that model built so that you actually could see what it really looked like.
mm,
And the more we went on, the more complex the buildings became, and the larger they became, the more models we built. We built a model for just one section, so that we could get the 3 dimensional feel of it. He had that in his head, but he
yeah.
he he wanted to actually feel it and touch it in a little model. So we spent quite a lot. In the end, we were spending, I don't know, in those days, $20,000 on a little model,
Mm,
just to get it right.
right.
And no, no, you're right. He had that ability.
Did people in the meetings where you were present, when this sort of interaction happened with architects, maybe with interior designers, did was there a sideways glance at you as if to say, please help us here? Just tell him to
Um,
shut the F up and let us get on with our jobs.
I thought you meant a sideways glance from Sol. No, the sideways glance from all the pros was exactly that. But needless to say, when he was always right, which he nearly always was, uh, they actually they actually admired him. I mean,
Mm,
they were most of them were quite flabbergasted, because he had to combine. The other thing architects can do is they can get carried away with what it's going to look like
true.
without
Yeah.
figuring out how it's going to work.
Mm.
I was the boring person in the room who kept saying, that's not going to work.
Mm.
Now, it's not going to work because this room service waiter is now going to have to work 7 miles to deliver a cup of tea or something or other. And so there's always that battle going on between what it looks like and how it
Yeah.
works. Sol grasped that immediately. I mean, whereas sometimes you had to battle with an architect
Yeah.
or a designer.
Did did
Um,
you did you then ever have a, for instance, where later, not in the beginning of his career, because people didn't know him and didn't know what he knew, type of thing. But did you find later in his career, and in your time together with him, that there were certain firms who would go, no, thank you very much, but we are not interested in working with Mr. Kersner or the Sun organization because we know what it's like.
um, no, short answer is no. People, however hard it was, and they really could get abused from time to time. Um, there was still an admiration for
Yeah.
him because he often taught them more than they taught him, and no, I think he was universally admired. Now, some people couldn't take it.
Mhm.
Some people says, "There's no way I'm going to work for him. I can't take the abuse or the
Yes.
pressure. Oh, and also the requirements on their time.
Well, we all
I mean,
know we all know about midnight phone calls or early morning phone calls going, get your
yeah,
ass here now
yes.
type of thing.
Yes, that's right. But in his defense, in those cases, he was never mean about how they got there. I mean, they learned that if they were going to get jerked around, if they came for the second job or the third job, they didn't have to ask if they say they were an LA based designer. They didn't have to ask whether they could fly first class from Los Angeles to South Africa or to the Bahamas or wherever. They knew that he wouldn't mind. I mean,
Mhm.
he did not mind if people working closely with him had the same benefits that he had.
Right.
And so he was fair in that regard. I would say fair, generous in that regard.
Did
Um,
did people know this of him, or did they just see him as this brash hotelier screaming abuse at workers, or building these enormous, almost palaces to capitalism that are still up and still running successfully?
hmm. Well, I think it depends on what level they work with him. Some people obviously knew that, some didn't. Yeah.
What was it like for you when you first met him, when you first walked into a room, um,
Mm,
at that the early on in your career with him? What was it
mm.
like? Was there an instant
Um,
recognition that this is a man I can learn from, and did he see in you somebody that could benefit his business?
well, as the book says, I first met him when I wasn't working for him. I was the
Yeah,
manager of a hotel in London, and my laundry had ruined his girlfriend's dress.
yeah, I remember.
So I met this man swearing and shouting at my front desk clerk, and I mean he was really letting go every word you could think of, bouncing off the marble walls of our lobby. And I took him into my office and calmed him down. Said, what's the problem? Let's sort it out," which we
Mm,
did. Um, so uh, I would say um, no. Um, no, he's no, it was fairly easy to gauge where
mm.
when he was going to shout or not shout, and you got
Right.
you sort of got used to it.
Right.
Yeah,
The book is called Soul. It's pardon me, it's a
yeah,
memoir written by you, and it's Ride or Die Press, which is an imprint of Melinda Ferguson publishing, if I'm not mistaken.
right.
Um, and when you approached her to do the book, did she have to edit a lot out in it? Because I mean, the man is a legend, and so are
Hmm.
you in the industry, given to give you your due.
I wouldn't say that.
No, take the compliment, Peter, please. Um,
Okay, thank you.
the Was there more that you could have added that your publishers or your editor said, look, this is a thick enough volume. Let's leave it at that. And let
Yes,
what sleeping dogs lie type of thing.
well, Melinda and her colleagues had to be careful, obviously, because as you will know, previous books that had been written had run into trouble. In fact, books
Yeah.
had to be burned. Um, I started this book by writing to the children. His children say someone should write this book.
Mm,
Do you object if I have a go at it? And the
right.
first reaction I had was, yes, that would be good. So I went through a process of sending them drafts and this sort of thing. However, at a certain point, that became tricky. Um, but I had decided I wasn't going to write a book that was defamatory about Sol. There are plenty of stories that could be
Yes.
told. Um, that I had this sort of guideline. I didn't want to embarrass or harm or hurt his
Mm.
children, because a lot of stories could be told. At one point, I had to say to them, uh, look, if you don't like this, let's call it milder version, let's
Mm.
say, I can write another version. So let's be happy I'm writing a milder version.
I
And
hear
it's not,
I hear what you're
it isn't
saying.
it isn't mild, but there are various things, obviously, that I think are best kept in the family, so to speak.
Correct.
Um, and I did not want this to be a hatchet job in any
Yeah.
shape or form.
No, but
Um,
that's what I felt when I read the book.
yeah,
It was exactly that. There was almost a reverence in the way you wrote about him. Yes, it was a sort of, I want to say, warts and all without the all.
yes.
A book
Well,
about the man.
it's difficult because you wanted to get across the character, and the character had some of the warts, as you say.
In,
And it was quite difficult to get a balance.
mm,
So without being unkind, it was quite a difficult task
yeah.
actually.
To
So
I can well imagine, but you tread that line very well. You really and truly did. It got very poignant for me towards the end, specifically
mhm,
around his death and the fact that it
mm,
happened. It was almost ironic that it happened right at the beginning of COVID, March 2020, and that
yeah,
it wasn't able to be buried next to Shirley here in Johannesburg, so that his
right.
remains are still, to the best of my knowledge and to the best of what I read in your book, his remains are still in the States.
Yeah, no, as far as I know, no, he was in Cape Town.
Oh, sorry.
Um, yeah, yeah. As far as I know, and
Mm,
it's possible no one's told me anything different, but as far as I know, that's the situation. Um, I know he wanted, I know he wanted Shirley to be buried next to Shirley.
yeah,
Um, he'd actually told Diana that, and there's no question in our minds, that's myself and my wife, that Shirley was the the real love of his
right.
life. And that's not being rude about the other ladies in his life. Uh, but I really believe in his heart he wanted to
Next
be
to
with
her.
her. Yeah.
The other thing that,
And
sorry, go
yes,
ahead.
sorry. No, that's fine.
The other thing that struck me was when once you resigned, he never meant you go into a meeting and he doesn't tell anybody that you've resigned. It was almost like you didn't exist.
Yeah.
You'd ticked him off because of the resignation, perhaps, and now he
Mm.
wasn't going to give you your moment in the spotlight to say thank you very much for your entire life, which you've dedicated to me, but just like
Mm.
slink off into the darkness. And I don't
Yes.
care.
Well, no, I must say I had for quite a long while a very negative feeling about him because I had worked as hard as I possibly could for him.
Yeah.
And I'd done all sorts of things which could potentially could have been damaging to my relationship with
Mm.
my family. Um, I tried to walk on water or whatever for him, but I couldn't do that, obviously. But um, I was genuinely very bruised, let's
Yeah.
say, when I felt as if I'd been just sort of flipped aside,
Mm.
when it was my decision to leave.
Yeah.
Um, I felt, well, he feels I'm no use to him anymore, so, who cares, sort of thing. I genuinely was hurt by that, and I
Yeah.
carried that for quite a while. But in the end, I said no. It's life's too short. So I didn't carry that forever. But I was upset by that. That's quite right.
People who knew you back in the day, what
Hmm.
would they, what are you doing currently? I just discovered, and I'm going to share this, that you are 90 years old. I cannot believe that.
No, no,
Um,
no. That's not true. My wife is 90 years old. I'm
okay.
actually 84.
Oh, okay. So it was
I'm still a young guy.
my source was not correct. I will
No,
correct them when I speak. But
yeah.
um, what are you doing with yourself now? How do you keep yourself occupied? I mean, doing what you did with Sol and with the Sun organization must have kept you, it did keep you busy 24/7, 365 virtually for your entire working career. And then to leave that and to go into inverted commas retirement, what do you do to give yourself a buzz?
Well, I didn't when I stopped working for Sol. Well, let's first of all let me go back and explain something. I viewed life in my view about life was it's got three main phases. One is you growing up and you're learning and so on and so forth. The next one is you're working, you have a
Mm,
career. The next one is, and the career is likely to put pressure on your family in all
correct.
sorts of ways. It's necessary because you have to feed them, but nevertheless, the career can take uh, first place over your family
Yeah.
if you're not careful. And sometimes you can't, how careful as you are, you can't avoid that. So I felt there should be three phases, and I'll try and divide them as equally as I can. One be the learning bit, the second be the doing bit, and the third will be the giving back bit.
Yeah.
And the giving back bit to me, it was spending more time with my family. I
Mm,
tried that earlier in my life. At a certain point, I got to a point where I figured, and I was in my, I don't know, 30s, or maybe almost 40, and I thought, to hell with this. I'm giving up. I've probably got enough money to last me a long while, so I'll give up now. But I knew I had to be careful. I mean, careful,
yeah.
financially careful. And I got to Miami Airport one day with my wife. I can't remember where we were going, and there were all the people checking in. And there was a huge line for the economy section, but there was no line at the first class section. So I thought, screw this, and I went to the first class section. And wherever we were going, I bought the tickets, which of course are 10 times more than all the other people
Yeah.
were paying. So I started living like that. And at a certain so that and I said I'm going to spend 50% of the time with the kids and 50% of the time with Dinah, sort of thing. And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It was stupid because I had a long way to go. Anyway, needless to say, after 10 first class trips and counting the money, you work out if you're lucky if you've got any money when you're 40 or 50. So I did at that point try, and I realized no, work's important for all sorts of reasons. Um, anyway, so in answer to your question, what do I do? Well, luckily, I mean, when somebody said to me when I retired, for a while the phone will ring,
Mm.
and then it'll stop, sort of thing. And I thought, well, okay, we'll see. Anyway, luckily it didn't stop. Luckily the phone rang, and that led me into all sorts of other adventures in terms of consulting jobs or partnerships or whatever.
Wonderful.
So I had two work lives. I had the work life that was around the time of Soul, and
Mm.
then I had a work life where I did all sorts of other things,
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you've been
which
kept busy.
yeah, very busy. But the last year, of course, has been tough. I haven't been able to do anything because since my wife had a stroke,
I'm sorry to hear
uh,
that.
you're sort of on call, so
Yeah,
I haven't been able to. Um, but no, I mean, luckily the phone hasn't stopped ringing,
good.
and but you do have to realize that you are out of date, if you know what I mean, in professionally. You do have to
Yeah,
realize that you actually passed your sell-by date, and what you can put into a project or whatever it is not necessarily the latest,
yeah,
especially with technological
yeah. Well,
change. Um,
AI has taken most of that from us.
Yes,
Yeah,
but um, the fundamentals are still there. I mean, AI can take all it likes, but it can't do, as I was saying earlier, what Sol could do, stand there and say
exactly.
that's the bluest
Yeah.
part to put your building in. So
Peter,
a lot of,
I'm going to
yeah,
have to
fine.
stop you there. We're out of time, unfortunately. It's been
Okay, okay,
absolutely wonderful chatting to you. The book is called
okay.
Soul, My Friend and Adversary. It's published by Ride or Die Press, and it's written by Peter Venison. I suggest if you're going away and you're going to be staying in a hotel, take this book with you and use it as a Bible to see if the hotel that you're staying in lives up to the standard that Sol set and that Peter writes about. Peter, thank you so much for joining me on Off the Shelf. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you. Okay, goodbye.
This has been Off the Shelf. I'm David Batsoff, and until the next time, bye for now.